Happy after all. I'm happy after all. They try to break me, but I'm strong. I'm happy after all. Take your time and take control. Life is hard, but not for long.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the second episode of Tea and Talk. I'm joined here today by the lovely Stephen, who is here to talk about mental health, especially like male mental health. So we're just going to talk a bit about lived experiences, and then he's going to give us some advice as well on how men can deal with their mental health. So Stephen, over to you. Just a little quick introduction about you and who you are, about yourself.
Hi everybody, my name's Stephen Reed. I'm a mental health wellbeing practitioner and founder of Mellofluence. I'm also a non-executive board member at Southwest London St George's as well. So yeah, and that's a little bit about me. Lived experience, I've had depression before, and I think that's about it. In the family, we've dealt with mostly PTSD and outcomes of that look like, and some cases of neurodivergency. So definitely amongst Black men and women. So my family's of a Afro-Caribbean background, but all Jamaican. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining me this evening, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So let's just get cracking. Let's get started. So you've mentioned that you're a wellbeing practitioner. So just kind of asked to kind of get into a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis, just to get a bit more understanding as well of what is it like working in that environment.
All right. So as a mental health wellbeing practitioner, the other term that we can be called is low intensity therapists. So what we are is we're catchful. We are a group of individuals who are trained to deal with those with severe mental health care problems in secondary care. But the challenge with that is we have a set number of interventions that we deal with currently. So we have up to 9 at the moment. So what that a day, so we do that, and then I'm all trained in CBT. But as internally, we can develop skills in other things like dialect behavioral therapies, or DBT, which is for people that you treat with EUPD. It's just specialized training. You also have acceptance-based therapy as well, and we use techniques from there. But on the other side, we do this thing called care planning. And care planning is a new term it sounds like a new term for care coordination, but it's completely different. It's a form of like social prescribing. So there's a lot of like groups, charities, services in the community that people can access no matter where you are in this UK that are available to you. And I think, and one of the things that even led me to start in Mellofluence is my community doesn't know, and not just my community, but a lot of ethnic minority communities aren't aware that these services even exist, and that you can get therapy, and that there are individuals that look just like you and come from similar backgrounds to you to get help with your mental health. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, you just literally answered my next question of where I was going to say, what is the kind of, I don't want to say statistics to make it sound really formal, but what is, do you get a lot of our Black people, males accessing the services? Do you see a lot of that, or
no? Unfortunately, to keep it, obviously we are in the United Kingdom, which is the majority is white, and on top of that, a lot of these individuals I worked in Richmond, and in that specific area, a lot of people, you'd think that a lot of these people are privileged, but you really get to see that not everyone is created equal. So even amongst white individuals, I don't have the facts and figures to mind. From what I see, that no, we don't have a lot of Black or even ethnic minorities coming through our services. And if they do, they're like sprinkles of individuals who have access because they've been known to services for quite a while, or they've reached a point in their crisis where, you know what, I really need to get some help. And I think the challenge that we have now in our service is that we don't know how to reach those who before they get to that point of no return, and their families are overwhelmed and don't know what to do, is how do we get them to come in before that point? So yeah.
Yeah. No, so do you think that's because due to stigma? What do you?
Definitely stigma, because so growing up, I grew up in Brixton, South London. And
Yeah.
when you think of black men and mental health,
Mm,
like way back, even now, men are having conversations about not only how they think, what are their opinions on how they think, but how they actually feel internally. What are the
mm,
challenges that they have in managing their well-being? A lot of us are kind of working in a way where we feel like I have to just push through. That there's no rest or respite for me. I don't have a community around me of sorts.
mm-hmm,
So I would say that, for example, with um my the pages of mine that are black women, they have these fantastic communities of women around them that empower them,
yeah.
make them feel connected, and give them a sense of hope and optimism and confidence and identity and meaning, and they feel so empowered by that they do
Mm-hmm,
want to feel a bit resilient. And more often than not, it has been helpful. But on the opposing end, for black men or even some individuals that are non-binary, they find that incredibly challenging, because black men feel isolated in the sense of my identity is wrapped up in being the provider. And
mm-hmm,
even though a lot of them in their core do not agree with the traditional value
yeah.
and do adopt a modern mindset, a lot of them feel that they aren't measuring up to that standard.
Mm-hmm,
And can be, even by my opinion, sometimes quite unhealthily mentally. So
mm,
it leads to a lot. But then you add that extra layer of being a non-binary individual, for example,
yeah.
and the challenge becomes a lot more difficult, because I do identify as a black individual.
Yeah.
I'm not being embraced because no one understands the experience, but I'm going through not really conforming to a modern identity of a man or
Mm-hmm,
woman. And
mm-hmm.
that in itself comes with a lot of challenges, even clinically.
Yeah, yeah, okay. It's quite interesting exactly what you said, just in terms of, you've got that whole a man being the provider and you can't really um you can't be down, you can't be, you have to be. That's
Yeah.
exactly the stigma we are trying to kind of come around. So just kind of touch upon what you said earlier on as well, in terms of like, you had a bit of lived experience, but please do share as much if you feel comfortable sharing. So within that time, did you think of accessing kind of therapy? Did you know within yourself what was happening?
To paint a picture, and I think this is something that happens with a lot of black men, is I was so at that point we had a house fire with my family, and
Sorry.
in that house fire, and in
Mm-hmm.
that kind of issue, so we're burnt out, and
Mm-hmm.
all we have is like all we have is literally the clothes on our back, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, our neighbors are really kind of supportive, and it's a
Yeah.
real community. Like one of our neighbors to this day, like
Mm-hmm.
she let us stay in her house for like a week, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot, because she really destabilized herself to accommodate this random family down the road.
Yeah.
It's a real act of kindness. But in that, we are dealing with the council who are trying to not take any ethical
Mm,
responsibility for what we're dealing with. And then we have like insurance providers who are trying to avoid any responsibility in
yeah.
trying to pay us what we're due. So we're left in this weird limbo. And as a man at that point with my mum and my little brother, it was a lot. Like I had that
Mm-hmm.
responsibility of feeling like I'm letting my family down because I don't
Mm-hmm.
to make their lives easier. And
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of things happening around us and people trying to take advantage of my family, as we were very vulnerable at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm working a full-time job, and my mum mentally, because she's got PTSD from this experience,
Mm,
so it's like she's dealing with quite a bit as a black woman, but also as a mother.
mm,
And my brother, as a young black boy at that time, he's dealing with the PTSD and the fallout from that. And I'm completely unaware of what mental health services are up until that point. It wasn't until one of the workers from Look Ahead, she suggested that I looking into get in some therapy. So I had some sessions with IAPT. It was basically me just moaning for like an hour.
Yeah.
a lot of the a lot of at that time there's no real set structure. You just go in and talk. Really, and the way it wasn't really as it we practice now, which is like person-centered care. So it's about challenging those thoughts that you specifically go through, not just letting you vent for an hour and then letting you go home, because that's not conducive to your recovery. So
Yeah.
that's what really began my journey with that. And I had like an up and down battle with depression for years. Again, it was tied around what I identified success as. But
Yeah.
now that's not a place that I can say I'm happy that I'm in.
Mm.
I'm not in, sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for sharing that. It's quite was quite interesting to hear, especially, speaking from like your own personal perspective and also like from your professional perspective as well. So just to kind of go in a little bit deeper about the I want to say the cause that you are now looking into. So it's
Yeah.
mellofluence. I always say it wrong every time I want to say it.
And you know what? Yeah, and you know what? That is, you know what? I should change the tagline. You know what? You might say it wrong, but we're gonna get it right. So it's
That is true. So you did mention a little bit earlier, kind of why you started it and what made you start it. So just to get a little bit more detail of why did you start it? What impact exactly are you trying to have with that as well?
So why I started it is it's a combination of a lot of things. So
Yeah.
it started as a little bit of an idea that I had during that house fire experience. And I always said, okay, I want to start like a form of a charity, but like I don't know what. And then life has a funny way of kind of working out. So like I finished my masters, and I remember we're doing this end of year project with this guy, and I'll never forget this random outburst that he had, and it was so weird. And he was like, basically, he just hated everything about his life at that point. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting there going, I ain't trying to go out be like that. And it was in the goal of being a business consultant. And I didn't want to end up like him.
Yeah.
So, but for me, the values that I've been a business consultant at that time, for me, I was just doing it because, okay, I'll make some money. Money wasn't really going to give me the fulfillment that I actually wanted. So I sat down bare confused, and my mum knew someone that worked in a forensic unit. So
Yeah.
a forensic unit is a place where people that for ex-offenders with severe mental health. So I worked in a low secure unit. So they're in the community, but they're not as high risk, and they haven't committed any offences within at least 18 months. So that's low secure. Then I moved on to a higher secure unit. And throughout those development stages, I realized that I'm very good at connecting with others and
Yeah.
aiding in their recovery and developing those skill sets and those relationships. And to now becoming a mental health well-being practitioner.
Yeah.
But then I realized there's nothing in the community to fill that gap that we do now currently. So where can you go to get, so I run, so where can I go to get group therapy without having to wait for like a long ass waiting list?
Yeah.
And where can I go to get a one-to-one, but like it's just a one-to-one? So I can do it for just a short period of time and then circle back, because that's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And therapy has a beginning, middle, and end. But for some people, they think therapy does not end, and it doesn't. But there's supposed to be a period of reprieve or rest or break where you're able to go, all right, I've learned these skills. Let me take a break for like a month or two and see how resilient I am. And then we'll check back in and then just go from there. But for some people, they're still on this continuous, unplanned low
Yeah.
spiral. So what I've started Mellofluence for was to kind of address that space where you can get some help in finding resources. You do have a resource that you can also utilize, but you have the space where you feel safe enough to kind of get some support in what you're mentally dealing with and how it affects your well-being. So yeah, that's how I got it.
No, brilliant. So in terms of Mellofluence, I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I'll get there. I'll get it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, it's an absolutely wonderful cause that you're doing. It's absolutely lovely seeing someone else as well taking an interest within like helping those in the underrepresented communities as well to kind of access mental health services. So is it open for everyone? Is it who can access you basically?
So in terms of one-to-ones, it doesn't matter who you are. You can book with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like for one-to-one, it doesn't matter white, black, Asian, whoever, you get one. Currently, I run a support group at the moment that's free for black men, women, or individuals aged 18 or over.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks. And it's free. Like, I'm gonna keep it strictly for the black community for my first year, and then afterwards open up to basically others. But my first year is literally about my community.
Yeah. No, brilliant. That's lovely. That is again absolutely wonderful work that you're doing. So I will be posting your page and all the information as well, so everyone can see it and also have access to it when they need it. Also, the service is confidential, isn't it?
It is. So the support group, and that's why I don't post like anyone who attends or what the group we discuss, because I feel like one is do talk about some personal things that people do experience. As a practitioner, I try to manage the room. Well, I do it over Zoom, but I try to manage the room very carefully in what's happening. So I don't post anything. It's internal. It's between just you and whoever's in that room. Is strictly confidential, as are your sessions with me, and it's a part of my code of practice anyhow. Like as a practitioner, to maintain that confidentiality. And well,
yeah. No, yeah, brilliant. Just as wanted to clarify again for anyone who's for anyone who's watching and listening and who wants to access your service as well. So just wanted to clarify that it is a confidential service. It's an absolutely amazing. So you're fully qualified and you're there. You've also got that lived experience as well. So you're able to bring that little bit more empathy and compassion into what you're delivering. So it's open again. It's open to all mental health, any kind of problems.
Yeah, whether you've got depression, anxiety, if you have a specific disorder such as EUPD, such as bipolar disorder, it doesn't matter specifically what that disorder is. We're gonna work through your assessment and figure out what the best course of treatment is for you, then work from there, rather than just going, oh yeah, hi, you just need to go and do this. And if I do throughout your assessment feel like you'd benefit from more higher intensity, that's fine. What a low intensity person does is prepare you for that, so that you clarify what your goals are, what you want to get out of therapy, what kind of support you need. Those are the kind of things that some people do need help with but don't. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So in terms of kind of just again for anybody watching, so what would you say for a young, especially these days, I've been hearing a lot of stories of young black men, I don't want to say boys, but young black men kind of going through the transition basically of becoming a boy to a man, also going through things like university, you finishing university, going into the working world, and they've become depressed or have had severe depression, severe anxiety. There's a big rise in that at the moment, where I've had quite a few parents as well reach out to me, not knowing exactly which direction to point them in, asking for that little bit more help and support. So what advice, I think the question is more in two parts. What advice would you give those young black men, and what advice would you give those supporting that individual?
Ooh, This is tough.
Put you on the spot.
This
Take your time.
is tough. I think the best way to answer that is first to those that are supporting.
Mm-hmm.
I would say remember to also think about your mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'm not even going to stick with just your regular depression or anxiety. You
Mm-hmm.
also have people that have. So, for example, you have people that are just throw it out there. So, Rwanda, for example, they
Mm-hmm.
went through the Rwandan genocide, and a lot of people can have PTSD. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're dealing with someone that gets flashbacks, has nightmares, and in their day-to-day lives find it difficult to, they're getting sleep, so they're getting irritable, they're getting angry. How do you deal with those outbursts? It's one thing, whether it's a man, woman, or whatever individual they identify as, is what are you doing to look after you in that? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
quite difficult seeing a family member going through a mental health,
Yes, 100%.
feeling powerless to support them. So the first thing I'll say to anyone supporting anyone with a mental health is do ensure you're looking after your own. So knowing when to say, you know what, I can't deal with this right now, step away. That doesn't mean you're saying I'm not supporting them. Just knowing when to take a bit of space for yourself and say, I need to just think about me for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that could be simple as just watching 3 episodes on Netflix or completely going on a holiday. But sometimes just take that bit of a moment to look after yourself and
Yeah.
revitalize your energy and get in tune with who you are and solidify that before you think about supporting anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to someone who does have a mental health difficulty, and I think one of the stigmas that people have is how do you not know? Within our community, we've gone through, especially within the Black community, whether you're Black Caribbean or Black African, you've gone through a lot of trauma, whether intentionally, indirectly, or not. You've gone through trauma and you've had to process that. And the ways in which we deal with those things can be quite difficult to come forward, especially if you think they're normal. You've buried them, or or been avoiding them, or worse, you're too scared to confront them. Those are the 3 points of that. So if you start to recognize that feeling of feeling depressed, do contact a GP and book an appointment for an assessment and get referred to your local IAPT service. They are thousands of them dotted around. They do have waiting lists. But besides myself, who offers obviously low intensity treatments, there are also a number of practitioners as well and teams that are also doing it as well. So you will find
Yes.
someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, you could sign up to a support group that's free like mine. You could also get referred, come to myself, but there's also places like Mind who offers free assessment, who also does assessments and takes walk-in referrals. There's also recovery journey centers that Mind have recently started as well. So if you're someone that's in crisis, so if you're feeling depressed, severely anxious, or you're finding it difficult to balance your emotions that are feeling quite intense at the moment, you can go into one of these hubs, self-refer, call up, and you can go in for an appointment and someone will see you. There's obviously Samaritans who you can speak to over the phone, and these people are trained practitioners as well. So you're not just or have a lot of experience managing roles with mental health. There's also Shout, which is a text-based service. So if you don't feel like talking to no one, to them man up via text, and that's that.
Yeah.
There's also a few other charities as well, where especially if, God forbid, but if you're going through anything like domestic violence or other services that I can't think of at the top of my head,
Yeah.
but there are so many services out there available to you, no matter what your background is, that you could get support with.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's amazing. For a question that you thought was a bit too, you answered it brilliantly.
But why it's difficult because it's such a broad thing to answer.
It is.
So you're proper there like, how can I find the right thing to say here? Because the thing with man, you know what I mean? The thing with Mandem, yeah, whenever we want to access mental health, we find it difficult to actually be like, I'm not all right. I don't want, because I know what that feels like. You feel like if I need to find the right thing, just pick something. There's all these options, just pick one. And if none of them are suitable, listen, she will drop an at the bottom of the tin,
Yep.
and I'll find something for you, or you can do something with me. But please do get help, because sometimes we put a lot on our family, and our families, our friends, our partners even, and we can benefit from just saying, I'm not all right, and that's it. So
Yeah. No, definitely. No, yeah, like I said, so your DMs are very much open for anyone and everyone who just wants to say, look, I'm not okay.
mental health, mental health, mental health support.
Okay, no, so yes, open for everyone who needs the mental health, any mental health support. Correction.
Amen.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so just to kind of last few little questions before we just round off. So what kind of advices would you give an individual, I'd say, let me take out just men out of this situation, just kind of bringing your professional experience in. What advice would you bring to would you say to an individual to just be able to look after their own mental health and their own mental well-being, for them not to go maybe down that negative pathway or maybe get into a crisis, just kind of for generic themselves?
You know what? Okay, I'm asking this in two parts, but I'm gonna keep it short and concise. If you have good connections around you, so friends, family, a partner, someone you can lean on, talk to someone. I would really urge you just to say to someone, even if it's something as, I'm not okay, I'm feeling depressed, and that's all you can think of, just start there and let that flow. And then really be specific in saying, can you just listen to me? I don't want you to talk. I don't want you to say anything. Don't give me no advice. Just listen to me. It doesn't matter what it is. And if you can't think of anyone that fits that criteria that can just give you a space to listen to any of the previous services, so like the Samaritans, Shout, where is it, St. Mungo's as well. A lot of them offer services, listening services where you can simply just be heard. So do utilize those if they aren't accessible to you. Now, if you don't have anyone, that makes it a bit difficult. So it's not that you don't have anyone, but there are some people that lead lifestyles where they're very mistrustful of others in general.
Yeah.
Or they feel like talking about it doesn't really solve the issue. So we are in a cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
And for some people, what I'm dealing with is because of this crisis. Like if I've got rent, if I'm in rent arrears and no one's helping me because I've got a mental health problem, I'm not talking to you about it isn't going to be solve anything. However, there are things you can do to get support with that. So when you do talk to your housing officer, you can go to your GP and say, look, I am depressed because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to get an appointment with my GP. Cool. Call 111. They can actually refer you to A&E, no matter where you are in the country. That's and say, look, you need to see this patient. If you find it difficult to get to A&E, believe it or not, I can't remember how, but there are ways that they would basically get out in contact with you, whether they by a phone, email, whatever, to basically say, okay, this is what we can do for you.
Yeah.
And go from there. You can get support. There are so many services available to support you in your time of need, because I feel like that's where a lot of people go wrong in terms of managing mental health. They feel like there's no way out, there's no help I can do, and you really end up making a decision that you wouldn't have if you didn't feel so overwhelmed by everything. So that's what I'd say to anyone is, if you do have people, talk to someone or any of the services available to you. And if you don't have anyone, do talk to those services, but also actually just start letting professionals know, I'm not okay, and be all right with saying that and advocating. And if it is an actual social care issue, so my rent arrears, my council tax, because with some people, when you have a diagnosis like PTSD, anxiety or depression, dealing with anything to do with forms,
Yeah.
overwhelming. So do make people aware and see what adjustments can be made. There are mental health advocates, there are support workers, there's Spear, there's Turning Point, there's many services that offer things that can support you in how you advocate on your behalf. You just need to access them, and some of those even accept self-referrals. So choices.
Yeah. No, brilliant. No, yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's that I'm not saying I'm not okay, because for a very long time I struggled with admitting I'm not okay. And it's not like I didn't have that support system around me. I had plenty of people to support me, but it's a thing of where it was just in my head of, no, I'm being a burden. I'm a burden. I can't tell people I'm not okay. People have their own lives to run. People, you know what I mean? So it's like,
But that's the trap of depression, is that weight. Because it feels heavy for you, you feel like, I'm not saying this is your experience, but
yeah,
it's that, from my experience, it was that weight of, I feel like this is heavy for me to do. If I try to share this with you and I can't handle it, or if you can't handle it, it's a wrap. Like, I remember when my mum was dealing with her, brought her therapist over, and she was just talking about the things she went through, and her therapist just broke down and cried. And for some people, that can be unhelpful, because it's like, I didn't want to say anything. Like,
yeah,
but mum, I had to say to my mum in retrospect, and what she realized even is that, you know what, I didn't realize back then the sheer weight of what I've been carrying up until that point, because her tears weren't for herself and what she was seeing, but they were for me. And this is just some super white lady just crying in a bedroom, but still, like, it was a lot for my mum to sit down and reflect on that and go, rah, like, what I've been through isn't all right. So it's for some people to sit with. So you're not alone in feeling like you don't want to be a burden. It's a common experience that we all have. But the way you ease that depression is by actually saying to everyone, yo, I'm not all right, and this is the support I need.
yeah.
If you know what you need at that point.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's also like what you said as well, going to receiving that professional support as well, that confidential professional support, because those people are there to help you. They are trained to give you that support as well. And, you know, they've I want to say they volunteered themselves, but essentially they have kind of, volunteered themselves to kind of give you that support. So if you feel like, I feel like if an individual feels like they can't speak to someone who is close to them because they don't want to burden the other person and these things, at least speaking to someone. And that's one thing I've learned as well, is that at least speaking to someone is better than not speaking to anyone at all. And like you said, lifting out that burden and just kind of sharing it, and having someone talk to you about different kind of like healthy coping mechanisms, and talking things through, and somebody just helping you through that. And as well, sometimes we feel like the problem is maybe too small, like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. But then you've got that niggly feeling at the back of your head just bothering you constantly, just kind of, but you'd be like, oh no, it'll be fine. It's nothing. It's something so small. There's no point of sharing it. Even that small thing can grow to be a big, massive thing, because then it just takes, and then it will just take that one thing for you to just break. So even that small thing, you feel like it's a small thing, but I feel like if it's bothering you, talk, just say it. And like you said, there's no harm in saying, I just want you to listen.
Yeah, there really is. And there's one thing I'll say to everyone as well: do recognize safety is a bit of a thing right now. So do recognize where you feel mentally and emotionally safe. And I think a lot of Black men struggle with recognizing what that feels like. And the challenge with emotional and mental safety is, for a lot of us, we know what physical safety is because that's our experience. But mental and emotional safety, a lot of us are unfamiliar with that. So do I feel at ease around this person? Do I feel like I've got to be on a defensive here? Am I constantly over explaining myself? Do I feel tired? Do I feel drained? Do I feel overwhelmed? And sometimes not recognizing these sensations that are happening. So I would say to anyone, not just Black men, but anyone, do recognize the emotional and mental safety of who you're confining in. And if you don't, make sure you can recognize it by answering those questions I said earlier. But notice, do you feel at ease around them? And where does that ease come from? Does it come from, I'm familiar with the chaos they bring, or do they actually just feel a bit boring? Pay attention to that boring, because it means that the nervous system isn't reacting to them, and you feel calm and collected, and that's what you need to be used to. So basically, boring is good. Boring is good. But most importantly, if that person makes you feel still, makes you feel centered, if you feel supported, like if I lean on this person just a little bit, they're not going to just tipple over.
Yeah.
And I can be open and honest and not judge. I can feel seen, heard, accepted for who I am and what I share. That is a person you can trust to be open, and that is a person you can feel safe with.
100%. No, brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephen. Now I'm just conscious a little bit about time, but so just to finish off, what is your final piece of advice to anyone watching?
Join the support group, book a 1-to-1, but most importantly, I beg you, please find your peace, find what brings you peace and joy. And if you can't, don't just look at me. Find ways to find those little pieces of joy in your life every day, and that can help you improve your mental health no matter what. There's no treatment for that. Just, it could be cooking, listen to music, could be seeing a smile on a woman's face. Just find those little moments of joy to share to yourself, and that will bring you joy.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. No, lovely. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.
Take your time and take control. Life is hard, but not for long.